Chances are, if you clicked on this video, you're one of those people that just exist. What I mean by that is everybody knows you're there, everybody knows who you're like, everybody acknowledges you, you don't have a problem with anybody, nobody has a problem with you, you chill with everybody, you make them laugh, but you know more than that. You don't get invited to nights out, dinner out, a movie night, gaming with the boys, or even hanging out with friends after school for that matter. You think that by gradually building your social status, popularity status at school, you'll eventually fit in and get accepted amongst the crowd and eventually become one with all. But that never happens. Ever since I was young, I always tried to fit into every single classroom that I was in. I started a new school, there's a new class, new environment, new kids, and I always tried to fit in. There were always the sporty kids, the smart kids, the nerds, the troublemakers, the bunkers, the drug addicts, the socially awkward kids, and then there's me. I always found that I could never fit into any of these groups, whether that be because I couldn't do it, I wasn't capable enough, or I just wasn't interested. So I was most oftenly just left by myself. And that's why I opted to be the class clown. Every single time I moved to a new school, it was always the same story where I would mainly just be an outcast. So I made it my mission to be the funniest kid in my class, the funniest kid in my grade. And slowly, it worked. I started to get attention from different groups, friend groups. They started to notice me, laughing at my jokes, and I started to increasingly get more popular. And I always made it a priority that I have to make every single kid in this class laugh at least once. And eventually I got good at that. And then I told myself that I'm gonna make every single kid laugh every single day. That was like my goal as the class clown, and that's pretty much what my identity was, all the way from like grade 1, grade 2, all the way up to grade 8. And I'm naturally slowly making these kids laugh, getting used to their humor and all that. And eventually one day, this kid who lives pretty close to our school, he invites me to come over to his house and play video games. And I remember that feeling that I got was amazing because that was the first actual offer that I personally had ever gotten in my entire life. And I remember I took my bike and I rode down to his house and we played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on the Xbox 360 for like 4 hours straight. And we had a lot of fun that day. After I came back from his house, that's when it kind of hit me all at once that not just from going to his house, but also the attention that I was getting from my new classmates was because of me being the class clown, was because of my humor. So I thought that I needed to keep this upbeat personality, this humoristic, funny personality to kind of build up my popularity points and status at school. And that's pretty much how it worked. New day, new classmates, new people I meet. I always try to get onto their funny side, make them laugh, and make them like me. And I knew that I couldn't have any days off because if I wasn't the funny kid in school, sometimes I wasn't feeling it, right? I was upset about something or I just didn't feel like being an absolute fucking nuisance. I noticed that I wouldn't really get the attention because nobody would talk to me. Nobody would acknowledge me. They wouldn't be treating me the same way they would have if I was the funny kid. But that rarely happened. I usually managed to go through the entire school day without fumbling once. And I noticed as I started to continue this persona and kind of make this my new identity, more and more people started to want to hang out with me. They're inviting me to go to their houses or go to the mall with them or just hang out after school, go get something to eat. And this is pretty much how I just envisioned and viewed my life to be. And it was finally happening at this city, at this time frame. It's finally happening. I'm a popular kid. So I remember I went to this kid's house to play video games. And this was actually with 3 or 4 other friends from the same school. And this game was a little bit different. It was something that actually none of us had played before, so it was a new game for all of us. When it was my turn, I didn't do too bad, but I didn't do too good. And the first thing I noticed after I died was I got the most shit. Like, those kids were yelling at me, they were making jokes, laughing, going crazy. The sarcastic comments, the offensive comments were all coming together at once, and they were just going ham on me. I didn't really know why they were going full out on me because the kid who went right after me, he did worse than I did, and he didn't even get half of the treatment that I got. So I remember I was just kind of sitting there on the couch and I was just like shocked because These were the kids who I was going to school with. I literally make these kids laugh every single day. I made these kids laugh today itself. So why did they just say the most devious shit to me right now? Why did they just say shit that I never thought I would hear them say to me? I remember the rest of that night, it was kind of just me sitting on the sofa watching them play. It didn't really seem to bother them that I was there. It didn't really seem to bother them that I didn't get much of a turn. So I was just sat there watching these kids play, and I was kind of just shocked and still surprised by what just happened. And this, I didn't really go too much into detail or too much into my personal story, but this wasn't the first time that I had experienced something like this happen to me personally. This was the first time that I personally experienced it when it came to school, when it came to my school friends, but when it came to my real life, this was something that happened to me 2-3 times before already. So it wasn't anything new to me, but it did kind of hurt 5 times more right then and there, because these were the kids who I was the closest to. These kids were my school friends. We're in the same homeroom, we're chill at school. So why did they just say that to me? Why did they just treat me like that? I never actually got the answer until I started my self-improvement journey, but I definitely noticed that this was something that was increasing more and more, or at least I was becoming more aware of it as I was growing up. Long story short, after COVID hit, so March 2020, all of the schooling and all that got transferred online. So I was at home now instead of a classroom, and I was alone. And not only that, but I actually moved again. So now, not only is being class clown through virtual school a little bit weird, but I didn't know any of these new kids. So I'm in virtual school, living the virtual student life up until December 2022, because that is when my self-improvement journey started. And basically, after a bunch of self-analysis, after going on the self-improvement journey, after being on it for about 1.5 years now, I've discovered the reason why I was an outcast, why probably you are an outcast, why we are different from the rest of the people. And that one thing, the main difference that separates us, is the energy, the aura. You have this energy, you have this aura, this vibe that is different from the rest of the kids, the rest of the crowd. And because energy vibes can be detected from a person, right? You can tell the vibes of a person just by standing and kind of talking to them. They notice that there's just something off. And that's what I mean from the start, where it's nothing off about you as a person. Your energy does not link up with them. You don't have the same vibes. You don't have the same connection that these people have with the rest of their folks. It's like you are the only rectangle amongst a bunch of squares. Despite your similarities, there is that one major difference. And you can disguise that as much as you want, as much as you can, as much as you feel like you need to, changing your dressing sense, changing the way you talk, changing the way you perceive others, changing yourself completely. And in the long run, eventually what could happen is you could end up like me. Whatever happened to me could end up happening to you. You are just now flat. Or what could happen is if you actually manage to attract another group of friends by changing yourself so much, now that you have a new personality which is relatable to whatever group it is that you are now trying to be a part of, in the long run, it's not who you are. It's not going to come naturally. It just will not work. So now there are 2 ways to go about this. You can go down the path of trying to get accepted, trying to change yourself continuously until you hit the dead end and come all the way back to right where we are right now. Or the second option is to admit that you are meant to be a loner. So now, as a loner, you're the only rectangle, you're the only one of your kind. So what do you do now with all of this free time that you suddenly have? Get on self-improvement. Do not go down the path that I went on. I got into a really depressive state because I was a class clown for so long, and suddenly now I have no friends. I just hit rock bottom, and I ran into the depths of video games, binge eating, bunch of bad habits. Don't do that. Accept and embrace that you are now alone. Start working on yourself. Get rid of the habits that you would have usually gone into. Instead of trying to get accepted and ruining your mental state and wasting your time on social media, just get rid of it. Instead of wasting time getting caught up into the virtual reality of video games, get rid of it. Really use this free time as motivation to better yourself, break out of your old habits, and build new ones. Not only is learning to live alone, embracing being alone, actually good for you, especially at a young age, but you'll notice that as you naturally start to use this time productively, challenging yourself, learning new skills, hobbies, and all that, you naturally start to attract people who are similar to you, who are on the same track as you. People who go to the gym, people who play sports, maybe you meet somebody from your business. And these are the types of people who you ultimately need in your life. These are the people who you can actually call your friends. So for anyone out there who is kind of experiencing this, who is going through this phase right now, take advantage of this, become a loner, get on self-improvement, better yourself.